and a very warm welcome to this morning's event. Choose to Challenge is the theme of this year's International Women's Day, and we're delighted to bring you some of Ireland's greatest international soccer players. We are delighted to be joined by Stephanie Roche and Áine O'Gorman, as well as by Myles O'Grady, Chief Financial Officer with Bank of Ireland.
On that, but I think definitely a perception of women talking about sports, particularly obviously football for myself, I think is changing, and people do tend to, even on Twitter, like I'm a Man United fan, and I often go on and have quite a few rants about Man United, and I think a lot of United fans can relate to me and talk about football, whereas before in the past, I think it would have been kind of like, she's a woman, what's she talking about, that kind of way. So I definitely think that the perception, as I said before, is changing on women having an opinion on sport, and I think that's because we're seeing more women getting involved and more women being, I suppose, promoted media on games. It's not unusual now to hear female commentators, female voices, and seeing kind of female pundits in the studio as well. So hopefully long may it continue, but I do think, as I said, times are changing, and again, to use the word again, I think perceptions are changing of women in sport.
Morning. Like I think it's all about I think things like that exposure and about creating equal opportunity, that the women's game can get the exposure, and like you say, the perception of the game can be changed. I think, like Steph related to earlier, it's maybe when people haven't seen the game and being exposed to the high skill level, like Steph's scoring that goal as a turning point to show the skill level and the technical ability of female footballers as well. So big turning points, I think, with getting sponsors on board, like the likes of Bank of Ireland coming on board with the Women's National League, is really important for our game, that we have that platform. I think it's about then creating equal opportunity, so you're getting the visibility, like all the games shown. The World Cup games, maybe except for the Ukraine games. Had I left that one off, I wouldn't mind. Look, having female pundits on, like the likes of Steph and Lisa Fallon, who do a great job. And it doesn't matter then whether they're male or female, their opinion matters, and they know football, and that's what it really comes down to. And I think if you're good at what you do, and you know the sport, and you know what you're talking about, it shouldn't matter. So it's just giving people that opportunity to change that perception, and then it becomes the norm. So we've seen massive strides in that, and I suppose the crowds increasing in Tallaght Stadium, and we're hoping this year, like, big things are happening in the Women's National League as well. So to increase the exposure and again create that equal opportunity, that we can strive and perform and get that exposure. Yeah, and I think the breakthrough moment really for me is going to be qualifying for that major tournament. I think success obviously breeds success as well in that regard, and build a following as well. But I think it's just to build the momentum off the back of like the likes of 20 by 20 campaign, RT showing all their matches. I know people in the FAI do a lot of work, but then at the end of the day, it comes back to us as players, that we maintain our standards, that we portray ourselves in a professional manner, and we're the ones that have to go out and perform and make it a good game, and make sure we're successful as well to keep that audience engaged, I suppose. So yeah, the next big step, like, I think the players are there now, and the players are coming through the ranks, and there's a good setup, management setup, good setup at international level as well. So the stage is set, and it's just to go out and perform now and get them results, and go on to the next level of qualifying for our first ever major tournament.
But I like to think that I have a decent insight into the game. As I said, I do my research. I think I have a good knowledge of the game. So it just comes back to, a lot of the times, the comments you get isn't actually disagreeing with your opinion. It's disagreeing with the fact that you're a female talking in the men's game. And as I said, it goes back to, if it's not, there's times where I've had a really good show and I'll come off and I'm like, that went really well, I really enjoyed that, I got my points across well, things that I said before the game happened through the game, so it makes you look good. And then you'll come off and go on your Twitter page and someone will be saying, Jesus, what is she wearing, who does she think she is, there's something like that. So it's almost like you feel at times you can't win, that kind of way. You can get everything right and things feel good, and you're always going to get that one idiot. And don't get me wrong, it usually is just one or two. It's not the majority of people. The majority of people are quite supportive and usually quite positive with their feedback. But yeah, it can be difficult, particularly, as I said, I've no problem with anybody disagreeing with my opinion. But when it comes down to making it about my gender, I think that's where it hits hard,
But Myles, can I come to you now? How important is it that a business which is doing things in the right way can actually feel as though it has permission to go out and encourage sporting organisations who might be still a little bit behind the curve?
Sure. Thanks, Rob, and good morning to everyone who's partaking in this. And I'm very happy and somewhat privileged, I have to say, to be sharing the panel with Stephanie and Áine. It's lovely to be here this morning. I think at the heart of your question, Rob, is substance over form, and that's really what we're talking about here. And it's not enough for a corporate just to put money into something. There has to be much more behind that. And I was listening to Áine and Stephanie, and I was thinking about, in the broad sense, the role of a team, whether that's football or whether it's banking. The logic is the same. You mean that a collection of diverse people with different skills, different experience, and even a different outlook makes a powerful team. And I'm pretty sure Stephanie and Áine wouldn't want to play with 10 players who are the same as them. They understand the benefit of different skills coming together. And of course, gender is at the heart of that. And so as a broad comment, what I would like to say is that when I think about diversity, and aside from it being utterly outrageous to decide anyone, whether it's based on gender, identity, culture, or ethnicity, putting that aside, we also know that the more diverse our people are, the better outcomes we have, both for our employees and indeed for our customers. So that's the broad answer. So I'm very pleased, and I also welcome the challenge to be the Bank of Ireland sponsor for gender balance. I take it very seriously, and I want to do something with it. I want to build on the success we've had, but go further. Now, part of that is the coming on as an associate sponsor for the League of Ireland, and covering both men's divisions and the Women's National League as well. And much of that role goes beyond just the game. It's around our role in the community, and there's a part of that is the More Than a Club initiative, which is working with delivering social programs, particularly for disadvantaged communities. And so if I come back to, I was listening to Stephanie mentioned, she talked about perception and opening eyes. And it's not acceptable for us not to perceive the gender balance, and it's not acceptable for us not to have our eyes open. And I think about also, Áine talked about building momentum, and that's really important too, because momentum is where we'll get across the line, not just making steps, not just making small changes, but significant improvement. And there's many ways of thinking about this, Rob, but in essence, like, we're out there by saying we have a 50-50 gender balance target. We're happy to be judged on that. And secondly, we're publishing our gender pay gap report. So regardless of what level you are in the company, how do our female colleagues compare to male colleagues on pay? And by putting those two metrics out there, I think we're hopefully showing our integrity and the substance that we want to make significant progress, and we're happy to be judged and assessed against that.
I know for me, my turning point was when my dad brought me to Richmond Park and I seen Olivia O'Toole play and score a goal. That's when I realised I could live the dream of playing for Ireland and the exposure the game's getting now. But I'm going to echo what Steph said. Look, it's all about enjoying your game and enjoying where you're playing. Just fall in love with the game. I think finding that love for the game is really important. Believe in yourself.
Well, look, the two of you throughout this morning have been great. Throughout your careers, you've been great. Long may that continue as well. Keep on inspiring us. Keep on inspiring our daughters and young girls to play. Myles, to you as well. Thanks to Bank of Ireland for being there, for helping to build that support. And by supporting the domestic game, by supporting clubs, that's all going to be to the good as well. It's been an absolute pleasure to have all three of you on to talk to us today. Thanks to everybody for coming and joining us. We're out of time now. Honestly, we could have spoken for the rest of the day about this. Let's make sure that we choose to challenge, and that International Women's Day is really just the first of the next 364 days where we actually put women's sport in the right place where it should be, on equal parity of esteem with the men's game. So to Stephanie, to Áine, and to Myles, and to everybody who has joined us here this morning, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.